Coolio, that is done. We're gonna load up the file. Fix my other computer because that's being a dipshit. Wasn't in a great sitting spot. Ow. Alright. Oh shoot. I should probably put in my other headphone. Alright. We are going to hang out. You grab a large beach towel off of your bed and stuffed it into a bag. You had already packed your water bottle for the upcoming beach hangout session. The stars had aligned, and somehow everyone was free today. Miranda had set things up with several buddy phone calls between you, Cove, Terry. She live! I am! Have a good rest, Grim. Between Cove and Terry to find a time to hit the beach. You were hoping that this would be a fun time together. Hi, Krusty! Murphy Jerky. Have a good lurk. Hope you were would be a fun time. Caro! Oh. It's not what you think, Daddy. No! He's fine. Happy lady. Wow, we're off to a great start. Cove sat on the windowsill. Thank you. With a kicked one leg, kicking his legs into the air idly. He had already had his swimsuit on, his towel had bundled under his arm in a misshapen ball. Such a good start. Put your shirt back on, child. I'm a junkie. He had shown up earlier that morning with a surprise amount of enthusiasm. He was chatting as you caught up to his preparation. What is this? But seriously, I couldn't find my swimsuit this morning. I looked everywhere and it had disappeared. I had no idea what I was gonna do. Oh, meow. Meow. My baby girl. Dare he? No, he's not fertilizer anymore. Baxter is. Thanks. It disappeared. I had no idea what I was gonna do. You could have just gotten a new one somewhere. What happened to all of your other swimsuits? You don't have to wear a swimsuit to the beach. Yeah, it completely vanished somehow. Just like your old sand pail. You stayed quiet. What are you doing, Oats? Hoppa floppin'. Hoppa floppin'. Oh shoot. Just smacked my computer. Hand over the hot mothers. Hi, Maltka. Wow, I'm getting visited by all the dogs. You totally just don't lose your stuff again.
Seriously?
Very funny, Sophia. That was different. I was 8. Give me the hot daddy. Anyway, I don't know why it was in the bathroom where I never put it there. He gave a small smile and readjusted the towel under his arm. You now could see that he had folded it at some point and rolled it up, carrying it without much care.
I'm so glad.
But I'm just glad I found it. It would have been crappy to lose my favorite trunks. It was nice to see Cove was so happy and comfortable in what he was wearing. You walked over to your dresser, amused and how you picked out your own swimsuit. That cookie. Oh my God. Fresh out of the oven. JK, I'm probably a really stale cookie at this point.
Well, if that's the case, it was rather foolish for you to venture here, wouldn't you say?
Caro, thank you for the host. And I still don't know why that thing's not showing up. Like, pick out your own swimsuit. Luckily, since you were average height, you only needed to worry about finding the right size. When it came to the shape of your body, you were heavyset, you were chubby, you had curves, you were generally medium, you were slender, or you were scrawny. Wolfie, look at this it's her scary emote. Which one are we calling scary? The one that keeps flashing in the face, or Pikachu? Because I find the face one more scary. You're slender. And you had noticeable muscles, you had a little muscle definition, your body was soft, or your body was delicate. Neither are, that was a joke. Oh. Me looking at my body. I have no muscle definition. Shut up, just... There was a smooth feel to your body without any hard muscles, even if you were flexing. Oh, F. Rude. You kept it mostly the same shape and throughout your teenage years. You were used to your body and your body was used to your habits. You're buff, perfect for eating fertilizer.
Are you okay?
Oh yeah, I was just thinking about some things. What things? Just myself, and my body, really. His eyebrows rose at your admission of self-reflection. And what do you think? What did you think of who you were? You considered your identity further. Are we going full-blown into this? You had always felt sure about your gender. You wondered if your gender was really something you felt right about. Yeah. Being called her was right for you. And you had small boobs. Your breasts weren't exactly small, but not huge either. You were well endowed. In the past, you had breasts, but had them surgically removed. Keep it up and I'll time you out, Trisket. They're not small. This. Shut up. They were medium, you suppose. What do you want? Good. Yeah. Looking. Medium, you suppose. You like the size. Why did you lick my knee? You wish they were smaller and might get a reduction. You wish they were bigger and might get implants. You used a binder, but were considering other options. Left them as they were, but you were considering options for them. People had a lot of their identities wrapped up in their physical form. It shaped their self-image. You were confident in yours, you were comfortable in yours. You weren't really content with yours, you hated your body.
Well, if that's the case, it was rather foolish for you to venture here, wouldn't you say?
Thanks for the host, Flamingo. You hated your body, or you had body dysphoria? comfortable. Your body was you, and it was a good one that you felt content in. Who's Flamingo? Who is Flamingo? Are we forgetting who Flamingo is? Okay. It's good. Perfect time. Did that one show up? That one showed up. Why doesn't it show up sometimes? You pretty much always felt good in your body. It was the way, though, through your main growing years, and now that you were an adult, you didn't see that changing anytime soon. I'm the hanky-panky man, thank you. Okay. You focused on Cove again. He smiled at you and tilted his head, a question still in his eyes. He was waiting for you to come to an answer, but before you could, you had something to say to him. What do you think of me? Or you like the way I look, right? About how I look. Why? Why did you do that? Okay. She didn't even continue barking. She just did it and walked out of the room. Cove smirked a little, his eyes taking you in easily. Cove, doesn't even look good. Fishing for compliments, Sophia. Bark. You look great. Everyone knows that, including you. By the way, unless that has changed. He pouted, he laughed, he blushed. I didn't want a compliment, I was just asking. So what if I wanted you to compliment me? You still should. I'm waiting. Oh my gosh. I said you looked great. Cove shook his head, his hands went up to try to unsubtly cover his smile. I was kind of worried you were so in your head because of something was wrong. Guess not, I'm glad.
Hey.
Hey. Who's not complimenting my girl? Look at this uneven man. Oof. Cove gave a bent smile and pointed to your arms. You look shapely today. He answered not with words, but with an okay sign with both hands and the same cheeky smile. Cove suddenly flushed when he realized how boldly he had complimented you. He stood by it, even if he was a little red. You were a little taken back. That came out of nowhere. You glanced at yourself. You like that? Yeah. What the fuck? You started flexing to show off. You flirtatiously stretched. You stood there stunned. You're so sweet and fantastic. You have some very good arms yourself, or you hugged him. I fucking died. You fluttered your eyelashes and slowly stretched your arms out in front of you towards him. Your sleeve fell down. Instead of fixing it, you let it stay that way. You looked Ko straight in the eye as you opened and displayed your arms. He cracked a huge smile. Sophia, this is too much for me to witness. Really? In front of myself? Cove hopped up from his seat, fluttering his hands in front of you, gesturing for the display to stop, laughing the whole while. Yeah, screw this. You thought on some level he might not been fully kidding around with that. He was flustered. You gave the poor guy a break and put the goods back down. He exaggeratedly wiped his brow and letting himself fall back into place on the windowsill. The salad afterwards. Screw this. Finally, you felt that it was enough of that topic for one day. You went back to your original goal before you got sidetracked. You needed to pick out what you wanted to wear to the beach. So, a salad that has human sauce on it. Silence abomination. That's your cookie fertilizer stealing. You chose to wear casual clothes instead. You picked the one-piece swimsuit. You decided to wear a two-piece bikini. You decided to wear a two-piece tankanini. You wanted to wear your wetsuit. You wanted to wear swim trunks with the top. You decided to wear a Speedo with the top. While you dug around in your drawers, you tried to think if there was anything else that you were missing. If my mom gave me back the cough, I'm going to be so upset. An old-fashioned diver suit with a helmet. You took sunglasses, you grabbed a hat, you brought a shawl, grabbed boarding shorts. You picked out a regular shirt to wear, you grabbed a full swimsuit to cover up as well, you took goggles. With that taken care of, you held your outfit together and looked at Cove. He was tapping his toes on the side of the ball as you waited. You vaguely wondered if he thought that was a comfortable place to sit, and you hoped so, given how long he was perched on it. Regardless, it was time for him to go. You weren't going to put on your own beachwear with him just chilling there. Why not? I need a change. Cove smiled, content with being kicked out. Alright. Cove lowered himself off the window and strolled past you to get to the door. He lightly brushed his fingers against your cheek as he passed by.
Bye.
Gosh. I'll see you out front. Okay. When you were alone, you got undressed and put your swimsuit on. You had checked for a beach bag for the final time. God. It seemed like you hadn't forgotten anything. You left your room and hurried down the stairs, ready to meet Cove. You made sure to lock your front door and walked outside. No, stay. 18 minutes. Yeah. Cove stood in the road, looking down and scuffing his feet on the asphalt. When you shut your heavy door, he looked up and smiled. Hey. Hi. Miranda and Terry are going to be here in not too long. Terry even texted me earlier saying that she was mostly on schedule.
Well,
why don't we just head to the beach and wait for them there? We're both ready. It sounded like a good idea to you. And you said as much, and Cove shot off a quick text telling the two where you would be. Cove gave you a thumbs up after the message was sent. It was a familiar path to walk, and it wasn't long until you reached the shore. Cove laid out his towel on the warm sand, and you set up your stuff beside him. Looking out in the ocean, the rolls swelled, hit the shore God, motherfucking damn it, we're starting early, yay! You had lucked out. It was a beautiful day and the sky was clear. The waves were good, and it was a balmy summer day with a pleasant breeze to keep things comfortable. Essentially, it was perfect.
so?
Do you feel like heading into the water? Maybe just down the shore? or would you want to do something here? The water sounds good. Taking a stroll might be fun. I don't mind my feet being in the water. You had planned just to get some sun. Either way, it's fine. What do you want to do? You wiggled your toes in response to the comment, looked off into the shoreline. Cove nodded, accepting of the plan. He kicked off some sand off his towel absentmindedly. Yeah, that sounds nice. You took a deep breath and tasted the relaxing, salty air. Cove caught your eye and gave you a small smile. You chatted a little while before a comfortable quiet settled over the two of you, content with watching the waves as you waited for the others. Luckily, it didn't take long until you heard shouts. You turned your head to see both Miranda and Terry running straight for you. Miranda was... What are you doing, Oaks? Watching the waves 6 feet apart, I hope. Nope. Miranda was faster, making leaps and bounds across the sand, and Terry was following in her wake, laughing with her towel clenched around her shoulders, flowing like a cape. Miranda started making her jumps more theatrical and more precarious as she got closer. She waved them on. Cove waved them on with a bright grin. You shouted a greeting, you cheered at their antics, you waved too, you laughed, you shook your head, or you hoped that they wouldn't fall. Woo! The two officially arrived at Cove's and your setup. It looked completely ready for an ocean adventure. They were already in their swimwear, raring to go. Hey Terry, hey Miranda. Welcome to our beach.
Hey!
Hi. Hello, hello. She beamed and Miranda nodded with a smile.
Oh yeah!
Man, I'm so pumped. Yeah, I'm really glad this worked out. What have you guys been up to over here in your town? Cove, Sophia, have we missed things? Cove blinked and then shrugged when there was nothing he wanted to mention came to mind. You shrugged like Cove gave a big answer. You gave her a recap over what your family was doing. What have you been up to? I can't claim the cutie on the left. Yeah, that was Miranda, the person whose birthday party we went to in step 2.
Oh.
The usual. Terry laughed, mentioning a few things about her own parents, and Miranda brought up her family, sharing some wilder things about her older brother had done. Terry then started talking about her morning and how almost slept since she had stayed up too late last night, bouncing on her feet as she spoke. But don't worry about me being tired today. You know that I ran on less back during school. I think we all ran on less sleep back during school. Miranda filled in the group about her morning. Apparently everything had gone smoothly. She met up with Terry on the way here, and you knew the rest. Cove offered a suggestion to the girls. Hey, let's walk while we catch up.
Okay.
Oh, definitely. You were pleased that Cove remembered what you wanted to do, and sometimes he thought he could be thoughtful like that. Once everyone's stuff was settled on the beach, a group strolled over to the shoreline. The wet sand was cooled under your feet. A wave rushed up and covered your ankles in the water. You flinched from the suddenness, but by the next wave you were accustomed. You took another step forwards and sank a little into the ground. Behind you, the footsteps were soon smoothed by the waves. Your friends chatted as you all walked together. You took turns pointing out the cool shells or pieces of sea glass. It was a relaxing jaunt. I think Cove is slowly winning over Daddy Caro. Never 6 feet apart. Who does that? Not in this world. Hours passed. The group had moved between different activities, some low-key, some more exhaustive. For you, it was another break time. You sat on your towel and sipping at some water. Your friends were hard at work burying Terry full body under a pile. Miranda used her arms to force some sand around Terry's side, and Cove worked on Terry's feet. You took another drink and closed your eyes. Eventually, a shadow passed over you, damping the light that was still notable behind your eyelids. Perish. You checked to see Cove had joined you there. He knelt down to dig around in a pile of assortment beach stuff in the middle of everyone's towel setup and put on some sunscreen.
Well, if that's the case, it was rather foolish for you to venture here, wouldn't you say?
You dropped this? Thank you. I always need a good host. Oh, meow. Hey, Oats. Leave the dog alone. Caro is Co's mom. Both have green hair. Coincidence, I think not. Are you saying that just because you want Co's actual mom? I'm gonna lurk. I'm getting ready for sleepy times, but have a great stream. Thanks, Daro! Have a good rest. He took a seat next to you on his towel. He opened the bottle with a soft pop and began reapplying the cream. Daro, Co is trying to steal my daughter again. Come on. Hey. Hey. That would mean I'm like, Carl. And there goes Oats. He ran his hands across his chest to work the sunscreen in. You might have had checked him out a little from the corner of your eye while still sipping some water. Thirsty bitch. What is your mother doing? It's like nothing. He noticed you noticing him and tilted his head your way as you smiled, as a smile formed. Would you want to help me reach my back? Drinking water? Is that what I can drink water. Oh my gosh. Whoever's dog's outside, get him under control. Yeah, I can do that for sure. Thanks. You scooted up behind your boyfriend and reached a hand around his front so you could squeeze a small pile of sunscreen into your hand. What do you want from me? I'm not her father! You rubbed your palms together, spreading the cream out more evenly, and then began applying it softly to his shoulder blades. Are you guys trying to give me two dads now? I already have two moms. You're a hunter. What do you think I want? Oh, fertilizer. She don't listen to any of her dads. From there, you moved to the tops of his shoulder, at the nape of his neck, down his spine. Cove mumbling the entire time, and you couldn't make out what he was saying. It might have not realized he was doing it himself. Payment first, disappeared later. No, my boy! The tone of his voice and look on his face got the message across just fine. However, he was happy and you were too. The nape of the neck quickly sewing it. Levi, no! My boy's not a titan, leave him alone. After he and you finished up, Cove let out a comfortable sigh and looked off into the distance. Name your priceless vibrance. But then he sighed again, this time in an exaggerated, disappointed way. And you wondered if he was going to sigh again, even more dramatically, if you didn't say anything. $500. No! It's too cheap! Dara, no! What's wrong? You honestly wondered. You wondered what it was? You raised a brow, you chuckled. Oh, Cove, whatever it is, I'm sure it could be okay. You joked. After all, this is an excellent place to hide a body. God, no! Not too much. You gestured to Terry, who was practically just a hill of sand with a human head at this point. Then I got a quick chuckle out of him, and then he quickly hid his amusement. Cove shook his head, comically despondent. His frown didn't match the sparkle in his eyes.
Don't worry about it.
I'm just becoming another jaded adult, that's all. And now you were really confused. You waited for him to continue, and his next sigh did not disappoint. It was the most ridiculous, sad sigh you had ever heard. And then he smiled a little. Mermaids aren't real. What do you mean? No! How could you say this to us? What? That had not been what you expected, he continued. You know how much I liked mermaids as a kid? Well, merfolk as a whole, it really helped that they were out there.
I mean...
The ocean's a big place, right? They could be somewhere. But the older I got, the more I had to accept it, that they were just a fairy tale. He jerked his head over to the waterline, the rolling waves. They crashed against the shore and then drew back. This is a perfect beach for them. It was pretty, vast, and never too crowded. If merfolk did exist, we would definitely have met one by now, or at least we would have heard someone seeing one, but nothing. He acted as though that the result was truly bafflement. He let his head hang. I gotta let that dream go. Sean, the non-believer. Sean! To Candy Mountain we go, Charlie! I couldn't tell if I liked or hated that as a kid. You burst into laughter. That's hardly proof. It's not like this is the only beach in the world. You pretend to be shocked and disappointed. You shook your head. Wow, good for you to have that. Oh dear. What? Mermaids aren't real? You looked at him, trying to get fake tears start welding up in your eyes. I can't believe it. No. Mermaids, no. Cove chuckled a little to himself, the eyes tilted off to the sea. His face was still low. Maybe it's for the best. Let's say a mer person did happen to wash on shore one day. Cry. The sad tears. Cove is like Lars. A shrimp? He looked at you with a facetful expression. I could have lost my girlfriend to the magical underworld. Oh yeah, I totally live under the sea with merfolk. Even if I had a chance, I would stay on shore with you. If I could go with the mer person, only if you could come with us too. Cove grinned. He hadn't expected the answer. You're a nice person, Sophia. But what if they didn't want me? Would you seriously stay on land? You gave him a look, and you meant what you said. It only worked if the offer was for both of you. Are you sure that's the right call? If a beautiful, kind mer person falls for someone, I'm pretty positive that the sensible response isn't to turn around and say, no thanks, I'm gonna stay on land with a normal guy. Are you warning me that you would leave if you got the kind of offer? Why are you so sure that I would have to make that call? Since this is all hypothetically, why not have you be the mer person? I don't want that. You should get to be the mer creature, and I get to invite you. Or I should be the mer creature and invite you to the underwater world. Cove, there's no one could ever make me leave you. Cove turned his face to beam at you. He brightened immediately. Now we're talking. I'd be a good merman, right? I could see it. The amount of fan art I have seen of this man being a merman. Ko's gaze was drawn back to the water with shining eyes. He could clearly imagine some world where he gets to be a mer person who happened upon you here at this beach. You could try to picture what he could be thinking. It was quite a lovely story. And you heard Miranda screech, and your attention was immediately switched over to your friends. You saw that Terry had gotten impatient and shifted her legs, and the wall Miranda had building collapsed into a wet heap of sand, and she surveyed the damage critically. We're gonna have to start over on that part. Do you just want to give up on this now?
No way.
The burial must be completed. Continue. I will try not to move anymore. Why did I have her sound like that? Okay, if you're sure, I'll try to fix this. Miranda started reburying her, and Terry shot her a thumbs up, but she realized too late that moving her arm was a bad idea, and more sand on her crumbled, and Miranda put her head into her hands. Miranda, mommy, come here. Cove caught your eye and started dragging himself up. It seems like we're needed. You agreed and followed him over to the girls. Miranda nodded at the both of you with appreciation, and the three of you did your best to finish the job. You all worked out a system to use just enough wet sand to hold the rest together. With 3 people, it didn't take long for Terry to be entombed. Terry grinned massively, and Miranda offered high fives. The pile was officially done. Oh yeah. Resembling the Kool-Aid Man. Oh yeah. I can't do the voice. You kicked yourself out of the ground with gusto. Sand went flying in all directions, and Terry's shape imprinted was left behind. Miranda yelled again, and Cove chuckled. There probably wasn't a better way to get out. What damn? The four of you continued to have a good time. You went on a shell hunt. Miranda managed to find the biggest, while you found the most colorful, and Cove found a tiny crab. You did a little bit of everything. There were impromptu games or to just soak up each other's company. However, after a while, you all ran out of water, drinkable water anyway. It was decided that you would head to your or Cove's house. Things were gathered, and you started to cheerfully walk up the road. What next? I don't have anywhere to go, so it could be whatever. Same. I guess we can keep hanging out. Terry snorted, readjusting her grip on things. Don't sound too sure there, Cove. By this point, you could see your house, and it hadn't taken you long to make the trip. The conversation continued with everyone throwing out suggestions. Are people hungry? She looked from face to face in inspection. Cove and Miranda shrugged in concert, and no one was overly opposed to it. However, you weren't really starving. It wasn't quite at mealtime. We could get dessert. Miranda pointed a finger to her lip and thought. With a smile, her voice became more confident. Yeah, that would be fun. Terry considered it and then shot Miranda a thumbs up.
Sure.
Sounds great to me. I can definitely do that. I think it's a good idea. But there's nothing sweet at my house. Why is there never anything sweet? Your face glanced at Cove and his place. He shook his head immediately. That doesn't have anything good either. I mean, unless you want dessert-flavored protein shakes. Ew, no. She cut in held her hands up as if trying to ward off something evil. Cove smirked.
Not bad.
It's not that bad.
Nope. Well,
there has to be some kind of sweet shop around here. Let's look it up. Terry nodded and started to dig around in her bag. I like the way you think. Terry continued to rummage in her bag, grew increasingly frustrated, and she puffed out her cheeks and knelt down, settling the bag on the ground. With both hands freed, she was finally able to fish out her phone. She raised it up in triumph for a brief moment of celebration.
I'm on it.
A search for something good. Terry got back on her feet, hefting the bag over one arm, tapping away at her screen in another. But she assists Cove from top to bottom. No shoes, no shirt, no shoes, no service. Cove glanced down at his bare chest and feet, not even registered it prior. He chuckled a little. I'll grab something. Cove moved over to his house, and you look towards yours. Or don't. Or don't. You watch Cove disappear into his house. Terry was deep in the midst of scrolling through food options. You shuffled over to where you could see, and Miranda did the same. There's ice cream. People love ice cream, especially around here. I don't really feel like ice cream.
Uh-huh.
Cool, because I don't either. She flicked her finger up with another ice cream place. Showed up, Milty Moo frozen treat. With an unfortunate cartoon mascot. I like ice cream, but not for today. There has to be something else. You thought on it, and Terry kept scrolling. You heard the door open, and Cove reappeared. You were about to be surprised on how quick he was, but then you notice he just threw on a t-shirt over his swim trunks, a pair of sandals on, of course. Hey. Everyone else exchanged their respective greetings and then looked back at Terry's phone. Terry scrolled further and then made an intrigued exclaim. Oh. What about this place? They sell crepes. That's not something you see every day. Look how fancy they are. Crepes. She shoved her phone into your face. It was a cute shop, didn't show any pictures of an actual building, but the food seemed good. It was one of those places that put a lot of effort into presentation, the brand wrapping for crepes and well-added toppings.
Huh.
Weird. I never heard of it. I haven't either. Mysterious. But the crepes are so good. She nodded at her approval as Terry admired more photos. I go. It's not too far, but we could drive. Terry cheered at the success of the plan made, and you all walked around to Cove's car. He had to run inside once more to grab his keys. You wrote, "Wash me in the dirt of Cove's car," or you waited for Cove? You noticed a thin coat of sand and dust on Cove's car. You probably been there for a while since he's washed it. With a smirk, you carefully wrote "wash me" with your finger.
Very nifty.
Good work. I wonder if he's gonna notice. The car beeped and unlocked, and Cove ran up to you with the car keys in hand, his hair slipping into his face, and you brushed it back. Shotgun! Rude. I wanted to sit next to my boy. She clambered into the passenger seat without hesitation. You didn't argue and climbed into the back with Miranda. Terry activated the directions on her phone app and acted like the navigator, directing Cove to the crepes. The GPS tried to get Cove to turn onto a non-existent road once, and wanted him to do a U-turn instead of just using a left turn, but Terry looked at the actual path and it went smoothly enough. You were led to a small stall in a parking lot rather than a full building. That explains why there hadn't been pictures of the creperie interior and why it was new to you despite living in the town for your entire life. It was a completely new structure that had popped up recently. There was a window you could walk up to and one for cars to drive up to. Cove parked with a laugh.
Come on.
I don't think I need to put on my shirt for this, but still wanted to try it. Let's go.
What?
Do you not trust us to eat in your car? She gestured through the drive-thru option, and Cove shook his head with a snort. I trust some people here, maybe, but I wouldn't be more fun to check it out. Grapes. Everyone acknowledged his point and piled out. Terry tried to tease Cove a little, but Miranda started talking about the last time she had grapes. Apparently, they had been a dessert explosion topped with multiple sauces, powdered sugar, and what Miranda was pretty sure they had cake icing. That's sweet.
So great.
Literally, it's so good, but I regret it so much. I couldn't finish it. I really tried. You can do it this time, Randy. Look, a menu. There were some laughs, and when you got up to the menu, you realized that there was more than just crepes. There were definitely crepes, many crepes. However, the stall had a lot of different drinks, as well as teas, smoothies, and milkshakes.
Woo!
Jackpot! She grinned, and this thing keeps always pulling up food, and I'm like, well, now I'm hungry. She grinned, held out her fist for a fist bump. Miranda high-fived it. The two of them stared at the awkward, vaguely turkey-shaped hand configuration that they made and slowly put their hands down, and Cove's mouth twitched in a smile. You stepped up to order first, and you glanced back at the menu. You ordered a crepe, you ordered a drink, or you ordered a crepe and a drink. Getting both. Hello, I'd like to get a crepe and a drink, please. There was a woman who looked a little older than you taking orders. She smiled back at you, ready to hear the specifics of your purchase. For a crepe itself, you wanted plain, strawberry, chocolate, green tea, or a lemon. Ooh. I used to go to a crepe shop. Like my first semester of college all the time. And the person knew my order. This won't be my order. It was literally just bananas and cream. For the filling and topics you picked. Oh. Whipped cream, condensed milk, cream cheese, chocolate chip, chocolate syrup, caramel syrup, powdered sugar, strawberry, mango slices, mixed berries, banana slices. Or you didn't want anything extra. Banana. Condensed milk. Okay, I should stop. I kind of want everything on it. After you picked the size, you asked what you wanted to drink, and you ordered iced tea, black tea, milk tea, iced coffee, strawberry smoothie, banana smoothie. Oh god, banana smoothie. A mango smoothie, coffee frappe, a vanilla milkshake, or a chocolate milkshake. Oops. Nah, she ignored me. Shoot. I like milk tea, I like banana smoothie. I don't do well with desserts. I want to eat all desserts. Not the creamy stuff. I know you hate whipped cream and cream. Shoot. Oh, with the crepes. Oh, no! Milk tea. You also could add a mix-in or toppings for the drink. You choose to add whipped cream or chocolate syrup. This is tea. You had a caramel syrup, boba pearls, or you chose to add condensed milk, or you didn't want anything extra. Cara, the creamy stuff is nice and tasty though. You paid and stepped aside to let your friends order. Oh no, they're all gonna go after her. Cove got a lemon crepe with powdered sugar on top and mixed berries. He also got a plain strawberry smoothie. Terry went crazy with toppings. She ordered a plain crepe and then smothered it with whipped cream, cream cheese, chocolate chips, chocolate syrup, and bananas. Miranda opted for a frappe with a caramel syrup and condensed milk. The four of you stood off to the side waiting for your treats. I heard what you ordered, Sophia. I'm glad I'm not the only one who went for a drink and a crepe. I couldn't pick one. Why not? Exactly. It's gonna be good. Sophia, man, your crepe's gonna rock. Stretch.
Well, if that's the case, it was rather foolish for you to
Jackie,
venture here.
thanks for the
Wouldn't you
house.
say?
High five for topic appreciation. She held out her hand expectantly. You gave it. You gave it a high five. You left her hanging, or you gave gave your fist bump to her palm. Just because what happened earlier, I kind of want this. Terry stared at your hand and blinked, and then she looked between Miranda and you. Is this just a thing now? I don't know what you mean. Miranda was surprisingly serious, while her face looked like it was seconds away from laughing, and Terry shook her head dramatically. Order for Sophia? Ooh, I gotta get that. You grab your order, and the others didn't take much time after that. With the goods collected, everyone admired their treats. Terry dug into hers. Miranda gave hers tentative sips. Terry nodded in acceptance with her mouth completely full. Miranda tilted the frappe over to her with a grin. Terry sipped it and clearly loved it. She raised her crepe over to Miranda, and you could tell that there was an intent to make it look nice. There was an intent to make it look nice, but with all the sort of toppings piled on, there's only so much could be done. Miranda took a huge bite with gusto and sighed happily, and Terry seemed satisfied and took another sip of Miranda's drink. They both had only gotten one thing, probably because they knew they were going to end up sharing. Cove went over to you, and there was definitely an interest in his eyes at your order. Well, I want to say you can try mine. It's pretty good. Summary. You tasted his and you shared yours. You offered to share yours but didn't want to try Cove's, or you declined to share entirely. Share. Stop yelling, you weirdo. I don't know why, but I just now imagine just Kara just in just a room, like if we were all just like watching this together, and just Kara's just in the back just screaming. Like you're in a movie theaters and then you just have that one screaming child in the back. He handed you his crepe first, and you tore off a piece, putting it to your mouth. It was tart from the lemon and syrup berry mix brought it in the sweetness. The balance between thin and almost spongy crepe and the juicy toppings made for a unique set of textures. You passed him yours, and he tilted over his smoothie over. You took a sip and had sucked up a large strawberry chunk before the actual smoothie came up the straw. How dare. Indirect kiss. It was mostly smooth with a delight, tiny crystals of ice, and occasional bits of fresh strawberry. It matched well with the crepe, even more berryness. Cove enjoyed his sampling too. He had a giant smile on his face and looked almost disappointed that you had to swap back your treats. With that, Cove started to eat his treat in earnest. You saw him take huge gulps of the smoothie, and then without swallowing, he had a bite of his lemon crepe. Bet he did. He had a habit of mixing food together, wasn't anything new. He hummed in satisfaction as you guessed he must have liked the combined flavors. He's Ratatouille. He's Remy. That's what it was. Cove. Terry tore off a piece of her crepe and held it out to Cove.
So?
Care to make a trade? Sure. Instead of continuing to launder in the parking lot, the four of you started to walk down the sidewalk. There was a lot of sharing going on, with crepes, bits, and toppings being passed around. You wouldn't have been surprised if Terry ended drinking more of the frappe than Miranda did. You kept going down the way, eating and drinking and chatting. And you hadn't realized how far your group had wandered until you ended up in the now leaving sign. Apparently, you were able to just walk there out. You just walked right out into the middle of nowhere. I want something sweet now. Do it. Oh shit. Did she bark? She squeaked. Terry took her mouth off of Miranda's straw and stopped sipping the frappe. Impossible. Preposterous. How did we end up at the end? I always forget how tiny this town really is. Cove chuckled a little and then swallowed a chunk of Terry's grape.
I guess.
Kind of is, huh? It didn't feel that small when we were growing up. Definitely felt bigger then. It always seemed like there wasn't much here. There's tinier places out there. You guys are lucky that we live in a decent-sized city. You quietly nodded along, or you shrugged. I'm really tempted to try. Time you out, TGJ. Don't tempt me. It was definitely bigger than... Yeah, sure. There was a time when Sunset Bird had felt huge. Say so. Who say so? I swear too much. Felt huge. It seems like an endless as the ocean. There was always some street that you hadn't wandered down, and something new for the tourist. But now, you had realized that it was just a pawn in this big, big world. Seeing the definite and only reinforced this. Here was the boundary that provided your hometown that could be walked out with ease. I guess this means we should head back. One does not just walk into the middle of nowhere land. We're not just one, Terry. There's 4 of us. Terry scrunched up her face, not wanting to acknowledge that joke. She decided to ignore it. It stinks. Oh shit. Stinks having to go all the way back. Yeah. It's not like there's anything out in that direction. If we keep going, it's only gonna be a longer trip home. You stared off into the stretch of the road as Cove agreed that he did not want to go out any further. What are you? Oh. Did you walk by and then she wanted the bone? How much that? Thank you for hitting my computer. What are you doing? Why is your nose cold? Okay. Hi, Kayla. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you for the kisses. We can take a break here first before turning around. We've been walking for a while and someone finished my drink. Right on cue, Terry loudly sucked air from the straw. It was so good. George. Hi. Look at you. Thank you, boy. Miranda looked at her, but Terry remained repentive. In the end, though, it was agreed to hang out around the sign before heading back to the car. It didn't take long to finish the rest of the food and drinks, and now everyone gathered up the trash and stuffed into bags or pockets for now. The group relaxed on the grass, keeping count of all the cars that drove past. That was not a high number. 14. A newly passed car drove into town from somewhere outside. But as the vehicle came by, it slowed down as you watched it ultimately rolled to a complete stop. Stranger danger, run! It was a black car. It parked right by the now leaving sign, and everyone exchanged a baffled look. But then you saw the tinted window roll down. The driver peered out, and as soon as you saw his hair, you recognized him. No one else presented themselves so distinctly. How did I have his voice? Hey, neighbors. Yep, that's what we're going with. Cove also jolted with recognition. He passed on the cordial smile and waved politely. After he put his mouth back over the straw of his long, empty drink, trying to act cool. I mean, hi. My nose. You waved at him. Hi. You were just wondering what he was doing here. You wished he hadn't stopped to chat, or you smiled. You were excited to see him. You leaned forward, trying to get a better look. His hands were loose on the steering wheel, and he seemed rather relaxed to have pulled over on the side of the road. You waved, and he nodded in acknowledgement. You thought that it was an odd picture this made. A fancy black car pulled over to talk to a group of teenage, mostly in their beachwear. Miranda was incredibly confused and shrank back to watch. Terry tilted her head in an unspoken question. Cove made a quick gesture pointing towards Baxter, and a light bulb went off for Terry.
All right.
Ah, that's the new person in the condo, the bee-man, right? Yeah, Baxter.
Oh.
Oh, I wasn't sure if we would ever actually see him. Her voice was quiet. Miranda usually got shy around new people. Terry was quite the opposite. Incredible, this is perfect. Terry hopped up from the grass and ran to Baxter's car at full excitement. Behind her, Miranda picked herself up and dusted imaginary dirt off her clothes. She sent a searching look to you and Cove, to which Cove shrugged and Miranda nodded with a clenched fist and hesitantly followed Terry. Terry bent down to talk to Baxter through his window. She blasted through introductions, with Miranda putting in a shy wave. Cove looked at you. He clearly had no intention going over. You stayed with Cove, or you went over to Baxter, or you encouraged Cove to come. Let's see what happens when I do this. Come on, let's go see him. Cove pouted, his cheeks flared out a bit childish puff. I don't want to. I don't know what to say. Stay with Cove. I am staying with him. I'm just bringing him. Leave him. You can go. I'll wait here until he's gone. Didn't say anything. You should really come. You can do it. Do you want to be the only person who doesn't go see him? Well, why can't you just stay here with me instead? You sighed. He was definitely going to be difficult about this. Some days, he really was that same grouchy 8-year-old that you met all those years ago. You stayed with Cove, you went over to Baxter. You're being a dick, as you said, as you officially pushed him towards the car, or you physically pushed him towards the car. Do you really hate him that much? See, I just stayed with Cove the first time I did this, so I've never went through all this. What if I call him just a dick? Not willing to mess around anymore, you strode over behind him, used both the hands to force him up. Language, Wolfie. Yes, did you call him a dick? Yeah, he's a dick. No, I did not choose that option, though. Hands to force him up and over to the car.
Come on.
No, Sophia. Cove put up a major wall of resistance but got to his feet. He didn't want to keep being poked at. Slowly progress forward was made until the two of you at the driver's side window. Baxter smiled welcomingly. Hello. Hey. Cove greeted him mildly, his expression cautious. Howdy, Baxter. What is that? Popcorn. Baxter gestured to Miranda and Terry. I just rented this car. Oh my god, what was his voice? For my stay here. And I was coming back from a bit of sightseeing when I spotted your crowd. Then these two were kindly introducing themselves.
Uh-huh.
Yep, it's only polite. Speaking of polite, Baxter's gonna give us a ride. I asked him to. Baxter looks cute as well. I had a feeling you would like him, Kale. What? Baxter shrugged guiltily, seeing Co's dramatic reaction. No. The offer is open. I want a bunch. And we're taking it. Oh, okay. What is that? You were just happy to get a ride. You were kind of annoyed that Terry did this. You felt uncomfortable getting a ride from Baxter. Bitch, I ain't walking. I'm not driving either. Regardless of anything, you didn't have to walk back. That's what counted, and you were grateful to Terry for arranging it. Alright, plans made, let's hop in. You excitedly opened the passenger side door and buckled yourself in. The car was pristine, and you were right near the new car scent air freshener. Baxter had the air conditioning on cold, but it was low, so it was a pleasant cool inside. A nice relief from the summer sun that you had been baking in all day. Cove equals fine. Baxter equals death. Cove, what are you doing? Your friends clambered in the back and definitely seemed the slightest bit squished back there.
Does that sound alright?
Welcome to my vehicle. I hope everyone's comfortable. And if someone could point me in the right direction, we can be on our way. Punch him. Terry went back to navigator mode and outlined their journey. It was basically a straight line with one turn at the end into the parking lot. Baxter nodded up in the passenger seat and pulled back into the road. Luckily, the street was still dead empty. It took no time at all for Baxter to park right next to Cove's car, and there wasn't even enough time for a proper conversation to start. The occupants didn't seem to mind. They were all smiles around when Baxter pulled next to Cove's car. Woo! Miranda clapped quietly as Terry cheered. Cove chuckled nervously. I haven't heard no. Teddy Carl, go. You smiled? Yeah! You clapped as well. You nudged Baxter in a friendly manner, or you were relieved to make it. I don't know. The trip had gone without issue. Baxter hadn't sped excessively or stopped for another set of teenagers in swimsuits. He had just driven down the road and now you were here. You sighed with a breath of relief and put your hand on the door handle. We arrived. That was easy. Terry flung open the door and climbed out.
Thanks.
Everyone else exited the car, and the group thanked Baxter for various degree of enthusiasm. Baxter himself had gotten out too. Everyone congregated again in front of Baxter and Cove's car. Cove looked at the back of his and frowned. He had finally discovered the wash me that you put on it. I wonder who did that. You snickered along with Miranda, who realized that you had been caught.
Ooh.
It's a mystery. Right. Terry bounced over to Baxter and offered her hand for a handshake. He accepted it with a charming grin. You're a pal. You're too kind. It was no trouble whatsoever. I'll be keeping this car all summer. If it suits you, you're welcome to take my number and give me a ring whenever you need another ride. That goes for everyone here. I have a car. Terry burst into laughter and Miranda fidgeted. She did not know what to do with that. Baxter went really fast, didn't he? Really went fast, didn't he? He noticed her discomfort and smiled a soft tilt of his head. I'll be happy to help again. But that's the only reason I offered. If you don't need it, you can pass on it. I'm gonna just mess with you guys. He beamed widely at your response.
Absolutely.
Baxter pulled out a pen that he had with him for some reason and jotted down his number. He passed the little paper to you and you accepted it. With her giggle subsidedly, Terry put a hand to her chin with a brow furrowed. I wonder, would that option be available right now? You could valet us somewhere cool.
What?
Cove was taken back. He put a hand on the roof of his car. Were we going back to the neighborhood? Wasn't Baxter going back to the neighborhood too? Why would we go somewhere else? Because we can. Miranda squeamed nervously and then committed to piping up.
Maybe?
We could go to the park near my place. It's a really nice hangout. We're a nice place to hang out. You and Co shared a look. The big park was pretty nice. Let's do it. Baxter tapped the side of his face in thought.
It's doable.
He glanced at Cove and then switched focus to you.
Well,
We have two cars. If someone wants to go to the park, I could still take others home. But if everyone's going, it wouldn't make sense for me not to. You decided to go back to the neighborhood with Cove, or you decided to continue the hangout session at the park? You guys are ignoring that. You weren't ready to tag out yet. You came to the decision to turn to Cove. Let's go to the park. I'm just curious where the other option goes, but I'm not showing you guys. Alright, park time it is. He smiled a little and Terry cheered and Miranda nodded happily. You felt like you made a good decision. Check it out later. Did you both do uptime?
Yeah.
To the car again. Which car? There's multiple. You watched to see if Cove or Baxter had an answer. 1 minute more. Oh my gosh. Cove sighed. A hand ran through his hair. He tapped on his car's roof nervously.
I guess.
We can go in Baxter's, I guess. It'll be less of a pain than to bring both. We're all going to the same place. Are you okay with that, Baxter? Certainly. I meant what I said. If you need a lift, I can give it. Neither you nor Terry brought up any objections, so the gang climbed back into Baxter's nice ride. This time, Baxter offered to turn on some music. After all, it would be a little bit of drive to the park. Play what you normally would, don't mind us. Can we see what's on the radio? I'd rather not have any. Christmas music? No. I'm curious. Yeah, I would like to see what kind of stuff a guy like you is into. I hope the playlist lives up to your expectations. You would. Yeah, I would totally play Christmas music. He plugged his phone into the car with the aux cord and turned on some alternate music. With the music taken care of, Baxter put the car into drive and pulled out of the parking lot. The lot was practically empty, and you noticed that he was careful. He was careful anyways. During the trip, it changed to hard rock, punk, even screamo. Despite his personality, personable demeanor, he didn't seem to like upbeat tracks. It took a while to arrive. By the time you had gotten there, the sky was golden with the orange streaks of sunset. Everyone got out of the car and started to stroll along one of the paths. You walked by the basketball court and some picnic tables, taking in the sights. Miranda seemed amazingly content. The location helped her relax in the company. She led the way, sometimes stopping here and there to point something out, and Baxter turned to her and nodded along.
Not bad.
I love that we're still all in our swim gear. I've never been here, but I definitely see the appeal. Man, this is Randy's stamping gown. She's been coming here forever. Seriously, Miranda, have you ever had a birthday party that wasn't here? You missed out, Baxter, because every year she has a blowout party at the park. Imagine balloons everywhere. Miranda looked down, suddenly shy again with the attention on her, and she lets out an awkward laugh. Yep, every year. Actually, my birthday is where I first started to really get to know Cove and Sophia. She smiled and then pointed out a wide flat spot in the grass. Remember the bouncy house? I remember. He chuckled. You can practically see those old memories on his face. It was a party for the ages. You were great. Yeah, it was a blast. I miss parties like that. Everyone's too cool for bouncy houses. Oh yeah, that happened. You shrugged or you nodded quietly. The group followed Miranda along one of the picnic benches, and she took a seat and Terry slid in beside her. You spent the evening chatting amongst each other. Everyone had gotten to know Baxter a little better. Although you could tell Cove and him hadn't fully clicked. At one point, Miranda found an abandoned soccer ball and started tossing it around. To me. Miranda threw the ball to her and Terry caught it with a smile. Think fast. She chucked it at Baxter, who only had enough time to squeak, and it bounced off his chest, and he just stared at it dazed. He blinked as if he needed time to process what exactly happened, but then grinned dangerously. He rushed after the ball, and then rather than throwing it back, he surprised Terry and everyone by lobbing the ball high into the air. You bent your neck back to watch its ascent and inevitable decline. Baxter hooked it with his foot and launched it back up again. There were oohs and ahs from Terry and Miranda, and Baxter gave them a very proper bow. When it finally fell to the ground for real, Cove was the one who picked it up. He was impressed and wanted in. With that, everyone was drawn into a game. It was unspoken that whoever did the fanciest trick won. Most of the group was not particularly practiced with throwing a ball, so not many of the tricks were actually good. However, there was a lot of laughter, and you could see Miranda pull off a round off where she threw the ball with her feet. That was so cool. God, I couldn't do any tricks with the soccer ball. The sunset eventually darkened into the sky, and the street lamps turned on. Your group chosen picnic table laid in a bubble of light, and then the occasional bug casted a shadow as it flew by. It's a little strange being here so late on a normal night. Usually, that only happens if there's a party, an important game, or a fireworks show. Fireworks! Her yell startled Baxter, who was throwing the ball nonchalantly from hand to hand. He missed catching it, and it sailed sadly back to the ground, and you looked at Terry for her loud outburst. I just remembered there's going to be a fireworks show tonight in the city. Everyone's questionable looks, she huffed and tried to explain it further. It's some sort of celebration for an opening or something. I don't remember what. I don't think we can get into the actual event anyways.
Oh, yeah.
But you should still be able to see the show if we get close. You can't keep explosions in the sky away from the public. Cove raised an eyebrow, drumming his fingers on the table below him. You want to change locations again? Wasn't the last 2 times enough? Terry rolled her eyes and then shook her head. To her, it was obvious. Don't be a wet blanket, Cove. What happened to you? Sophia, Randy, Baxter, do you want to see fireworks? It's fireworks, we gotta go. Cove's right, this is too much. Or you didn't say anything. Fireworks! I guess there are fireworks, alright. Whatever. What's one more scene change? Yush. I knew this was gonna be a good idea. In turn, the 4 sets of eyes looked to Baxter. As the driver, his answer made or broke the plan. He chuckled softly. In for a penny, in for a pound. I'll go.
Honestly.
Generally, there's nothing better to accompany my time tonight. We better hurry or we'll miss it. Cove rolled his eyes but laughed. Everyone headed back to the car again. Terry brought out her phone to navigate to the city, and Baxter stepped on the gas. And you were on your way. Baxter drove past buildings aglow in a warm light that cut through the navy black night. One of the office buildings had bright LED lights that circled through the whole rainbow of hues. It was difficult to get through all the traffic on the road, let alone find parking in this late of night. Luckily, Miranda had an eagle eye when it came to scoping out spots. She pointed to a sedan pulling out and Baxter parked within seconds. Not wanting to miss the show, you raced down the waterfront walkway to find a place with a good view. We're all still in swimsuits. What about here? Here. Cove peered across the rails the distance and shot her a thumbs up. It was relatively quiet, isolated, and you can see the skyscrapers. That was a good sign based on where Terry thought the event was. Yes, this should be fine. She stopped, catching her breath, her hands on her knees, and Miranda leaned against the wall, establishing that she was recovered. Cove took a moment to breathe as well. Stretching his spine back, he looked up at the sky in wonder and let out a relieved sigh. Think we missed anything?
No way.
Not a chance. Nothing's happening. We can't be so late that we missed everything. Maybe it'll start soon. You felt excited. You thought it was a silly situation. You were nervous about how close the fireworks would be. You were pretty laid back about the whole thing. Fireworks! The spontaneity of the whole thing combined with the amazement of fireworks was a recipe for you to be bursting with anticipation. It couldn't start soon enough. Terry led Miranda to sit down at one of the oval slabs along the path. Miranda took a seat and began tapping her knees together as she waited. Terry, meanwhile, crouched more than sat. Baxter smiled politely and looked from you to Cove. He seemed to be waiting for one of you to speak rather than wanting to directly start the conversation. Something seemed to strike Cove as he unsuccessfully tried to hide a smile. We're all still in swimsuits. Wearing beachwear in the middle of the city, in the dark, was waiting for a fireworks show was clearly a joke of the day for him. Cove snorted once and then looked back up at the sky. I'm not sure if this tops the one night you went around town with me and Mom dressed in my PJs. You laughed too when you remember the incident. It was quite the escape. I really don't know if that's the actual word of that. That sounds like a story I would be interested in hearing. Cove looked at him and then you and shook his head slightly. It kind of is the story. There's not a lot else to say. You weren't entirely sure about that, but Cove wasn't ready to start reminiscing with Baxter.
So...
Well, I wish I had gotten the memo of tonight's dress code. I would have suited myself to fit. Ah, shit. He tugged at his shirt sleeve with a faint grin and going in for humor. He definitely was overdressed when you were comparing him to the rest of you. It was succeeding in making Cove smile. Sorry. Woo! Fireworks! A flash lit up in the sky with a brilliant green, and your eyes flew off the building in the distance and silently watched with bated breath. You heard a second boom and a red firework lit up the sky. Night. Woo! The show's starting! So pretty! They came running over to get closer, positively beaming. Terry pressed herself to the waterfront fence, getting as close as physically possible without actually going swimming again. More fireworks went off, shooting out hundreds of tiny sparkling lights. The colors stood out starkly against the dark of the night. Jeez. The biggest one washed your surroundings with their hues, turning your world blue and then red and then golden.
Welcome.
Did I deliver or did I deliver? Miranda's eyes glittered as she lightly bumped Terry with her hip. Good job. Terry stumbled at the friendly nudge, but was pleased with the compliment. She grinned back. Miranda lightly swung her hips and the opposite way to give you a bump as well. It was friendly and soft.
Woo!
We did it. You smiled at her and nodded. You were pleased that you hadn't missed any of the show. You were glad that everyone seemed to have a good time. You were uncomfortable with how near it was. Cove stared up into the sky with wonder, while Terry squealed in joy after the series had especially grand explosions. Miranda pointed to one that was shooting up and then gasped when it boomed. and it turned into a huge sphere of violet light. Baxter smiled in appreciation. It was good to see your friends in high spirit. The rest of the group huddled around the railing to take in the show as closely as possible. Miranda stood close by and Terry's hands gripped the top. Cove laid his arms across it while leaning forward, and Baxter rested his elbows on the railing, pulling himself back towards the fireworks. He seemed to have more fun watching the others than the actual show. Oh! She pointed out a golden firework then beamed. Ah, that's so cool! Terry held up a hand for a high five, and Miranda obliged her, and Terry whooped as it shot you a smile. What color do you think the next one will be? Without giving Baxter a glance, a Cove answered immediately. Green. It was orange, and Baxter chuckled. It wasn't interest in calling Cove out for being wrong. Is that your favorite color? Green? It's one of them. I think it's nice. It matches you. Is yours black? That's one of them. Cove smirked a little and left the conversation there. You stood next to the girls, you stood next to Baxter, or you stood next to Cove. Cove looked away from the fireworks and grinned at you. He was glad to be spending time with you and tilted his head at the spectacular multicolor fireworks above. I think that's been my favorite so far. He shot you another look and nodded while wanting you to move closer. In front of him, you could see the night lights reflect on the water. You took a moment to watch him, and the fireworks reflected in his lights. In his eyes! Cove grinned like a child. You leaned your head against Cove, you held Cove's hand, you wrapped your arms around Cove, you cuddled against Cove's chest, or you just stood by it. Pop. You pressed yourself against his chest and snuggled into him. He readjusted his position and wrapped his arms around you, holding you close. He rested his chin on top of your head comfortably. You let yourself relax against him and continued to watch the fireworks above. Cove's gaze drifted from the show of dancing lights straight at you. He seemed to sigh dreamily, and you didn't know when you last seen him so blissful. The spectacle continued up to the... Oh god, what the fuck? Ante? The fuck? By bringing more fireworks out at a time, the colors danced across the sky, reflecting over the water. You reached out a hand and watched as it was tilted green with a big boom sound. The fireworks were a normal summer tradition, and this was admittedly an unconventional approach. Showing up in the city last minute to watch a display from technically a private event made this feel special in a way that just planning to go out to a public fireworks show never would. Terry's idea may not have left you with a lot of time to prepare, but it sure led to a unique situation. It was clear that it was an unforgettable night. As the finale sounded, blasting in the air with unbelievable beauty, you remembered thinking that there might never be a night exactly like this one again, not for the rest of your life. You planned to hold on to the feelings you had for a moment as long as you could. Ooh. Oh god, that took a bit. So, reflection. After finishing breakfast at the Holtons' house, Cove had retreated to his room to relax before starting the day in earnest. Or perhaps you would take it easy for the whole afternoon. Neither of you had plans exactly, so you were free to do whatever you wanted when whatever came to mind. Bedroom! Oh no. Oh, his bedroom has changed a little. You leaned against Cove on his bed. You fiddled with the Rubik's Cube Cove had around. You stood and watched Cove's fish swim idly around their tank. You sat next to Cove on his bed, toying with his hair, or you sat on the ground doodling pictures in the sand scattered across the floor. You ran your fingers through the short strands, flipping them between your fingers as you were a hairstylist assessing the new look. No sitting, no hair fiddling. Not your house. Really though, you just liked the way the bristles tickled your fingers. Even with your mind elsewhere, you could tell Cove was similarly at ease. He had his chin propped up with one hand as he was scrolling through his phone. A burst of laughter broke through the silence and hooked your attention, bringing you back to the present. You looked at Cove for an explanation. His eyes now crinkled with mirth, while still locked on his screen. What's so funny? He finally looked up at you, smirking. Dad scanned some old photos, you know. He drew a rectangle in the air with the phone's free hand. Printed out ones back from when I was little. Texted it all to me last night, I guess, and I've been checking them out. You were looking at your kitty photos and didn't tell me? Can I see? That's cool. You smiled. It was nice. You sat out wide, full, hopeful. You wanted to see it. Want to see? That's okay. I just want to look at it first to make sure there's nothing super embarrassing. You never know with my dad. He grimaced, envisioning, yep, okay. What horrors his dad might have unwillingly sprung on him.
I mean...
What if there's a photo of me getting potty trained or something? You suppressed the empathetic shudder and nodded. You laughed at Cove's frothful expression. Kids' pictures are supposed to be embarrassing. That's part of the fun. He was holding out on you, but your protest was of no use. Cove only cleared his throat nervously. The fear of his dad's well-meaning actions may have loomed large in his brain. Anyway, before we forget, I was laughing because I came across a Halloween one where I was the year I was a zombie, remember? Huh? Flamingo, you might be onto something. Maybe Caro is his actual mom. They're both zombies. He shook his head, grinning wryly while holding a phone out to you. Look at this boy! I never even liked zombies. All I wanted to do was show off my new scar, and it was needed to be something scary. And I wouldn't be a normal person who had a scar, according to my 8-year-old mind. I was a little dork.
Right?
My dad really wanted to be useful as usual, and he came up with the idea of being an undead person. It was pretty good, huh? Man, I'm so jealous, look at that. it was good, but my costume that year was better. This was so grossed out, and Shiloh was terrified. I remember you getting lots of extra candy when adults realized the scar was real. It's hard seeing your arm like that. I don't really remember. Shiloh, who's that loser? It must have been your greatest Halloween haul ever. Code chuckled at your reply. I can't believe how much bigger the scar used to be. Yeah, because if you saw the one scar and then you see it now, it's just like a little bit on his arm. He looked down at his arm, a soft smile on his face, and traced what remains of the jagged line with his fingers, as you've seen him do countless times before. His voice was playful when he spoke again. Look how tiny he is now. How am I going to pretend to be a tough without a big scar? Cove, you never fooled anyone. You were relieved that he accepted and liked his scar. It's a definite blow to your street cred. It still looks cool. Better not do anything stupid and get a new scar. You jokingly wiggling a finger at him, or you aside in a long, suffering way. No matter how much you like them. I won't. Cove smiled bashfully, still pleased with his joke, and ducked his head to look away from you. His finger was still tracing the scar patch skin. At least yours just looks like whatever. My brother has one that looks like someone took a bite out of his hand. The dumbass his hand got stuck on a treadmill, so it burned it off because the treadmill was on. I really do like having this, even if it is kind of little these days. His voice was shy, like he was letting you in on a big secret. I like yours too. Sometimes I forget I did give my person scars. You grinned. He never failed to think of you two. Thanks, Cove. Cove turned back to face you fully, and finally letting go of the scars, he was happy. The mark was part of him, and he was clearly held meaning for Cove. He reached over and laid a reassuring hand on his arm where his scar is. Can I touch your scar? Or you smiled back at him. That. You cupped his arm with your fingers carefully as your thumb ran down the outline of the scar. Along with the rougher tissue of the scar, you could also feel the goosebumps on his arm. Cove let out a choked breath, and a dizzy smile played out on his face. It was yep, fuck it. He liked the feeling. You held his gaze, or you lifted his arm up to kiss the scar. Daddy Caro's not here. Jacob, not in this house. No, just your hold shifted so you could bring his forearm to your face, and Cove quietly gasped as he realized what you were doing, and you gently kissed the old wound that marked him. Cove squeaked at the feeling of your lips on him, and in that spot in particular, his expression was overwhelming, one of adoration. God fucking damn it. Cove couldn't stay still. He reached over for you himself with his free hand. His fingers softly caressed a scar marking your face. He leaned forward and eyes gleaming. You automatically begin to match his movements and pulling near to him. There's still time. I'm assuming that was supposed to be an emote, Kara. Oh, it was that one. Pulling him nearer to him. Is this one of the moments? His cheeks burned red as he closed the gap between you, his mouth gently meeting yours. Oh no, I think this is one of them. I think there's like 2 moments in this. You held onto his arm like a lifeline as you kissed him back, briefly worried that you might drown in the depths of your feeling. Okay, I did. And then you opened your eyes meeting Ko's, and you knew that the feeling was mutual. He laid his forehead to rest against yours. You felt his hot breath tickled on your face. Heads touching your hand on his arm. You were entwined with Cove, and it felt so right. 6 feet apart. Never. Times couldn't register in that moment. Time couldn't Yep, fuck it. It could have been seconds or minutes. Eventually, you straightened up, lifted your hand from his scar. That seemed to break the spell. Though he stayed close to you, Cove sat up. He came to his senses. Your eyes drifted back to the scar on Cove's arm. The scar had been there as long as you'd known Cove, though when you first met, it was concealed by a neon pink cast.
So?
Oh, okay, this isn't one of the moments. Want to hear how I managed to go jet skiing when I was 8? You initially stunned that he guessed what you were thinking, though given the topic of the conversation... Moments? Yeah, I think there's 2 moments. Though, do I remember which ones they're in? No. Given the topic of the conversation and the direction of your gaze, it seemed a natural conclusion to reach. What do you mean, moments? Nothing. Not bothered by your reaction, Cove continued to shrug. I don't mind telling you, it's nothing special. He rubbed the back of his neck, grinning sheepishly. Hanky-panky? Never quite that far, but... Mostly it's really dumb. You nodded. It was something that you would like to hear about, especially knowing that no lasting harm had come of it. Code stared into the distance, lips parted as he read the story in his mind. So, me, my dad, and mom were at a party. I don't know if it was a casual get-together or a special celebration. I hope it really wasn't something meaningful, because considering how I ended it. He winced and then managed a bashful smile. Anyway, my mom and dad were off doing stuff, talking to people, I guess. I was left with the other non-adults. Most of them were older than I was. Maybe all of them were? His brow furrowed as he tried to recall the dusty memories. He shrugged again and continued. The older kids were taking turns on the jet skis. There weren't enough for everyone to ride at once, so in between turns, they would hang out on the shore. I meant to just sit there and walk with them and watch. Remembering when you first met Cove, you bet that he hadn't been satisfied with that arrangement, and he confirmed that suspicion. I was pretty unhappy. It wasn't a party for me, and not when all I could do was look at other people have fun when I couldn't. The teens must have realized that, though I never hid when I was pouting as a kid. Only when you were a kid? Cove bristled with embarrassment, and then it looked pretty sulky to you. Come on, let me finish the story. Alright. Cove sighed, letting go of the interruption and picking up where he left off.
Well...
Basically, someone offered to let me ride. I was way too small to drive it myself, but this older kid, must have been at least 16, said I could sit in front of them while they controlled the jet ski. I knew I wasn't supposed to do anything like that. I still figured my parents were doing whatever they want, so why couldn't I? I nodded at the person, and I remember the other teens helping me onto the jet ski, along with the one driving, and we sped off into the water. Cove smiled widely and wistful. It was amazing at first. My hair was flying everywhere as we zoomed away from the shore, and I loved being out on the water like that. Too bad it turned out steering the jet ski with an 8-year-old sitting on your lap was harder than a bunch of kids figured it would be. The team tried their best and couldn't seem to control it for long, and we got spun around and went right into the sand. You sucked in a deep breath. The other person wasn't hurt, thankfully. They held onto the bars and stayed seated in their seat. I didn't. I was thrown at full force onto a rocky part of the shore near a dock, and I must have braced for impact or catch myself because my arm is likely what I mostly landed on. He looked down at the limb in question. He could see him visualizing the long-healed injury. It was pretty torn up. After that, it was a haze for me. I had gotten taken to the hospital. I didn't feel a lot of pain when it first happened. I remember thinking how I was covered in sand and the grains were uncomfortable. The sand was uncomfortable. Cove chuckled. I know, right? I did start feeling my arm later, and it definitely hurt eventually. The doctor said my arm was broken along with being torn open. That's how I ended up getting my pink cast. He smiled nonchalantly. Bitch, 8-year-old got tossed into a bunch of rocks. He's lucky you just had the R. That color, it seemed nice and happy at the time. It brightened the mood, so I picked it. The smile faded and he finished his story with a sigh, his eyes downcasted. I feel bad I did any of that. I hoped whoever teen that was weren't traumatized by seeing a little kid go flying to the ground, and they were just trying to do a nice thing. Cove threw his arms out to the side dramatically. I wish I knew who they were, so I could at least call them up and say, hey, I'm still in one piece. One piece! But yeah, that's the full story. I'm glad you were both okay in the long run. Really sorry what happened. You laughed. What a terrible idea it was. How could you be so reckless? Or you didn't know how to react. That's the important thing. Cove sighed again, the regret written painfully on his face. It was a failure. That's just the truth. He smiled flatly. But to my credit, I think I've grown a lot since then. Wait. Cove's eyes went completely wide, suddenly reinvigorated. He seized his phone, tapping away at the screen. What up? I knew it. You weren't sure that he heard you. He set his phone down and turned to face you directly. To you. His face was resolved. Through the glow of the screen was no longer reflected in his eyes. It seems the sparkle had even brighter than before. Hanky panky, yes, please. Sophia, we're adults. We can decide things for ourselves now. I know. I think that will probably be my lowest one, is the hydrate. Especially during, when I'm reading a lot. We decide things for ourselves now. You only realize that now? Okay. Where is this going? This can't be going anywhere good. I like where this is heading. Or you wait for him to finish explaining further. Oh, what are we getting ourselves into? The requirement age to rent a jet ski in California is 18. We could totally do it. You don't get to decide. Yes. No. Let's use our adult power for a jet skiing adventure. You want to break another bone? There's more exciting things to do that adults can do. You joked. You were shocked silent. Cove beamed, pumping the air with both fists. Definitely the action of someone mature enough to rent a vehicle. Jet skis! Alright. But the moment Cove had recovered and returned to his serious expression from before. I'll be careful. I really want you to be there when I try again. Please? His voice was soft and earnest. You could tell how much the request meant to him. You also knew him enough to know that he wasn't going to give up on this idea. Letting him go on his own wasn't an option. Of course I'll be there. I wouldn't miss it. You actually love jet skiing. I'll be interested in trying jet ski. I'll keep an eye on you on the shore. Cove perked up once more, a grin stretched across his face. He was practically bouncing in place. Let's go. You got all worked up as the team to gather everything needed for the trip. Cove and other aquated hobbies just came in handy. He was quickly knitted out with everything he needed other than the jet ski itself. You needed to run back home briefly, having dressed and prepare for the day that didn't involve jet skiing, but soon enough you were both ready to jump into Cove's car. As you got in, you learned that Cove had used a brief time apart to locate a rental store on his phone. You caught his eye as you clicked your seatbelts into place. Excited, you held out a hand, and Cove slapped it in a high five before setting off. You and Cove soon arrived. The ocean was perfectly inviting today. The deep blue water glittered under the clear sky while tides rolled in and out at its leisure. So excited for this. You were just as pumped as he was. His excitement was adorable. You felt worried. You felt a chill of fear. You were really doing this, or you didn't know how to feel. Jet skis! My neighbor had a jet ski for a while. It just sat there in his backyard. I don't know what he was doing with it. Seeing how pleased you were, Cove grinned at you.
Hey.
Oh, hey. You want to say hi to my dad while we're here? I've already texted my mom about the plan. He's working right now. You remember how close his shop was, and it wouldn't take you long by walking. Sure, we can do that. Mr. Holton was a great guy, and you're happy to check in on him.
Sorry.
Thanks. sorry, it's gonna be kind of awkward when he hears why we're here, but it should be alright. I mean, my parents forgave me a long time ago for that amazing stunt. I don't want to be scared of jet skiing for my whole life because of it. He wondered which of you Cove was attempting to reassure. It was only a short walk back down the dock to Mr. Holton's scuba shop. Cove breezed in, as familiar with the store as he was his own home. The place was quiet, empty aside from a couple of customers quietly browsing and Cove's dad behind the counter. Mr. Holton looked up, and his friendly expression spread into a grin when he saw who just entered.
Hey!
Hey! Haha, he greeted me first, bitch. Caro, your dad's here. Your daddy. Hey, Sophia. Hey, sport. What brings you all the way here? He cast an eye. Who? He cast an eye at the way the two of you were dressed. Judging by how you're decked out, I'm guessing scuba diving? There's plenty here for that. What can I help you with? Cove chuckled, amused how quickly his dad seized on a favorite topic. Or maybe it's how his dad always fell over himself trying to be useful. Let's marry now, so these two can be related, 'cause I disown you from my parents as soon as you do. Dad, we're not doing that this time. We sort of decided to go rent a couple of jet skis. The phrase jet skis had Mr. Holton's mouth and a taunt line immediately. Jet skis? He echoed the word as his eye attentively darted to the scar on Co's arm. That's when Mr. Holton started to speak several times in an attempt to each attempt quickly abandoned. Cove smiled encouragingly, trying not to add his father's words.
Don't worry about it.
I promise I'll be careful, and Sophia will be there too. We'll always look out for each other. Mr. Holton pinched his face back into an unconvincing smile.
Right.
Alright, you got a lot bigger than you were back then. Heck, you can even drive a car and everything now. I'm sure you and Sophia will have plenty of fun. The worry still echoed in his voice. Barely concealed by the positive words, Cove was buoyant by his father's support. Yeah, well, we're all set. We only stopped by to say hi and let you know, since we were over here. Mr. Holton beamed, obviously moved by his son's simple consideration. Wow, you're so thoughtful. Thanks for taking in the time. Cove gave his dad a crooked smile, shaking his head bashfully, as he long stopped fighting his dad's refusal? Praise. But that didn't mean he'd ever become good at accepting it. Mr. Holton simply laughed at his son's response. It would be great if you could keep me in the loop while you're out there too. Just text me to let me know it's going well or anything. I will. His dad smiled more easily.
Great.
Cove rubbed his arm, causing Mr. Holton's eyes to momentarily flinch back to the childhood injury.
Bye.
We're gonna head out now. See you later. Take care. See you, Mr. Holton. Mr. Holton waved you off as you left the store. The pair of you headed back to the docks, walking side by side. After your feet hit the boards, Ko's pace fell. Glancing over, you saw him look down, out over the water. That wouldn't have been unusual if his expression had not been so somber. He wasn't gearing up with anticipation or even nervousness, but with the lethargic. Something was weighing heavily on his mind. Ko, what's up? Were you gonna walk right off in the sea? You're gonna walk right off into the sea if you don't pay attention. You nudged him gently. He blinked, startled by you interrupting his rumination.
Sorry.
He sighed through your torn his attention from the ocean, and it gradually drifted back to the water, and you cleared your throat, unwilling to lose him again. Again, sorry. He put his hands to his face, rubbing his eyes wearily. Here we go. Thinking everything is resolved with what happened and we can have fun. But I can't enjoy everything I had to find out something else to get stuck in my head. You're having second thoughts about jet skiing?
No.
It's not that. The end of his lips were drawn into a beginning of a frown, like gray clouds clustering to signal a coming storm. I figured my dad would be a little worried about me doing it, but what he was saying, it wasn't what I expected. He was so sad, and it was more than nervous. I think he feels bad, and now I feel bad. But it isn't as if I'm the only one who ever does something stupid or gets hurt. It's gotten me thinking about that the whole time. And then when I realized it wasn't long after that incident that my parents separated. You stayed quiet, or you haven't noticed that before. Staying quiet. As a kid, I didn't think about the consequences of my actions. Your actions have consequences. When will you learn? Or how what I did impacted others, like why should I take care of anyone? Why should anyone care? I'm the one doing it, not them. It made no sense, and I still cared when other people did things I didn't like. When I was 8, I was mostly mad that nothing felt like it was in my control. You could tell that he was building up to something, so you nodded for him to continue. It was pretty difficult to deal with it because of that attitude, but looking back, I think that's what saved me from something that a lot of kids go through. Blaming themselves for their parents' divorce. It never crossed my mind that anything I did would make a difference on what my mom or dad's relationship. They would do what they did no matter what. Now, I kind of guess it's hard to ignore that thought, huh?
I mean...
Their situation was already so hard, and I wasn't a good kid, so... He left his words adrift as he looked down. The conclusion was unfinished, and it was silent between you. But only for a second, Cove pulled himself up to his full height, his chin held aloft. Whatever he decided, he was resolved. I'm going back. I'm going to talk to my dad, and I'm not going to let things be like before where I just feel crappy and refuse to tell him what's going on. That doesn't work for either of us. You can go ahead if you want. I won't mind. I still really want to do this. I'm sure it'll be okay. Alright, see you later. You nodded. You shook your head. I want to stay with you. There's no way you're going off on your own. We always look out for each other, remember? Cove smiled gently, having wanted that deep down. Thanks. Let's go. You and Cove retook your steps down the dock once more, heading back to Mr. Holton's scuba shop. The customers you spotted in there before were now leaving the store. New bags clutched in their hands, and you hoped that this would mean Cove could have this conversation without a public audience. This time, Cove strode into the shop with purpose. Mr. Holton, still at the counter, glanced up to greet whoever came inside as he grinned as you approached.
How's it going?
Hello again? Forget something? Sort of. Cove had reached the counter now, and you needed to rush just to keep up with him as he crossed the show floor. Mr. Holton raised an eyebrow, taking in Cove's shift of attitude, and chose his next words with care. Is everything alright? Cove swallowed, not answering initially. Talking openly with his dad was still something new for the son, and you knew that he was struggling for the right way to begin. I wanted to ask about what happened. Mr. Holton winced as if the words had struck him physically. The accident? No, the divorce. It's like, psych. Didn't see that one coming. The pain expression fell from Mr. Holton's face. Wide-eyed, his jaws slacked. He gaped at Cove.
Huh?
Why? Cove glanced over his shoulder at you as meet your eyes, and you saw him draw confidence by having you at his side. He turned back to his father. I want to know the truth. His tone was grave. Did me getting into the accident hurt your marriage? If I hadn't done it, would you and Mom have gone along better? No, hell no. Mr. Holton squashed the suggestion with gravity that you had rarely heard in his voice. You were 8 years old. You were not responsible in any way. Kyra and I should have protected you. I can understand why you're feeling that. What happened was so horrible. How could that not have an impact? It did. Oh, shoot. I need to fix my nail. Broken. It was a reflection of us as parents. The relationship between just your mom and me were separate. It was already unsalvageable. Cove turned away, his brows still furrowed, as he looked at the floor. Maybe I'm being anxious, but it's taking over, but it wasn't just then. I always caused problems. He plowed on, unwilling to give up without explaining his worries. What if I had been easier to raise, or if you had me later on? Maybe if you hadn't had me at all, it might have been better for the two of you. If I didn't have you, then what good of my life be? Mr. Holton didn't let the words hang unchallenged in the air. For even a second, he hurried over to Cove and taking his son in his arms. In his hands. Cove, listen. There's only one person to blame for things not working, and that's me. Cove opened his mouth to speak, but Mr. Holton forced on, determined to ease any question in Cove's mind. I'm not saying this to dishonestly push accountable off from someone else or throw a pity party for myself. You want to know the truth, so that's what I'm giving you. Are you laughing? Or wheezing? Your father is the reason our family couldn't stay together. You think you caused trouble? You should have seen me at your age. You were such a good kid, I could hardly believe how good you were. Don't judge me. Mr. Holton's eyes were misty as he squeezed his son's arms. There's nothing, absolutely nothing, you need to blame yourself for. I am sorry, Cove. To you and to Kyra. Judging. Mom? Yeah, your mom. His pained face eased slightly into a bittersweet smile. Kyra was just so smart, driven, and completely bursting with life. It was as if she could do anything. Kayla. You know, there wasn't a single solitary person who didn't want even a piece of her attention just to catch her eye for a moment. Oh, who is he? My mom. But for some crazy reason, she had a soft spot for my 17-year-old screwed up self. That's when we first met. Though it definitely took some time before I managed to ask her out on a date. Mr. Holton shook his head, and then the smile faded as he recollectioned became sullen once more. And we were only officially together for about 6 months when we found out we were having a baby. I was so worried, so scared, but she was so brave. She was my rock, and we both knew the road ahead was going to be rockier. When we got married, I didn't even see it as a dream come true. I wasn't about starting to live my life in a way I only can imagine doing so. I thought what happened, and throwing my cards in with a girl like her was worth the risk. Zan, so he was an accident? Yeah. He grimaced, the sentence soured in his mouth, forgetting his past perspective. I'd been taking care of myself on my own and getting by, and then all of a sudden I was going to have a wife and a child.
That's...
So he was like 18-ish, like maybe like halfway through 17 when he found out he was having Cove. Hot damn. So I thought, alright, I better step up things, take care of all of us, and that's what I did, sort of. Oh, that's why my finger keeps hurting. I forgot I had a paper cut. He rolled his eyes. I made money, kept a roof over our heads, and put food on the table. But I was always busy focused on taking care of things that I didn't stop to consider what everyone else was thinking or what they actually needed. I made every decision about what I did, and as a result, what happened to the family by myself, never asking what your mom felt or wondering if she might have an opinion. I told Kyra about a great place I found, and then and how we were moving there in the same breath. Or I spent all our savings and taking out a loan to start this business we are standing in. Even more nonsense. Anything I felt that I needed to do, I did. Kyra couldn't even ask where I had been all day without me rolling my eyes like she had been a nag. I was making sure we didn't starve, obviously, right? Couldn't she trust me? He sighed, hung his head low.
God.
She went to school part-time while raising you, really knuckling down, but that didn't matter to me back then. She could have spent her days lying in bed, not dying, and I would have felt the same. I didn't care. I was going to get it done on my own either way. It was so stupid, and I admired her more than anyone when there was nothing at stake. Yet, as soon as responsibility was involved, I couldn't let myself rely on her. He combed a hand through his hair, searching for an understanding of his own younger self. I'm not even sure why. Maybe I had something to prove. Maybe I'm the one who didn't trust her in the end. Poor Kyra, she had to spend every day mentally weighing the pros and cons of putting up with my horrible ideas for the sake of peace or trying to explain to my blockheaded self what I was doing wrong. It must have been so stressful and frustrating and constantly having to let everything go because I was stubborn and absolutely would have made a fight out of it. He snorted bitterly. I was definitely stuck in my head a lot those days. Our relationship at that point was made of arguments and cool tolerance. And I still generally didn't see the divorce coming. We made it through the first few years, and after I never really considered it ending. That's how my life was. In retrospect, it was clear Kyra kept thinking it on more every year, especially because she managed to finish her journalism degree, and with us being more stable financially, that is. She thought of everything, and she even timed it out right when your school ended for the year, so the process would hopefully be all settled before you had to worry about class again. We were already talking about it before the accident ever happened. I know I took it really hard, being a sad sack all around the neighborhood, but even that was unfair of me. When it shook out, I was the one who got everything. Kyra didn't want to leave you, Cove. She never would have. I am certain she felt like she had no choice but to end the relationship. The business was doing really well by then, so I had an easier time of making a living. She was between jobs, and when she did get a new job, it meant that she would be traveling all the time. Oh, isn't these? Okay. That's why she willingly accepted me having full custody. She didn't even get to be there with her child for so many moments, and you had to spend half of your life growing up without your mother, and that was my fault. Mr. Holton closed his eyes briefly as he took breath. So that's the story of Cliff and Kyra's marriage. Not exactly a fantasy, but I wanted to be clear. He saw his grip on Cove's arms tighten. No matter what happened with me and her, I never ever wanted to miss out being your dad. Cove's throat bobbed as he swallowed. His eyes glistened and glossy with tears that had yet to fall. He blinked quickly, trying to hold them back. Thanks for telling me. His voice was hoarse, a little more than a whisper. Mr. Holton brought a hand to his face, lightly nudging Cove's chin. You're welcome. You're a grown-up now, right? You deserve the truth. That at least I can do for you. Cove managed a fragile smile. Thank you for taking care of me for all that. Mr. Holton brushed the compliment off with a wave of his hand.
No worries.
It was nothing. Look at where we ended up. I got this whole entire store, a house, friends here, and a very thoughtful son. It's all good for me.
I'm so glad.
And Carl trying to marry you. His voice was still quiet. He ducked his head shyly after saying words. Mr. Holton patted him on the back, and you could see the tears in Cove's eyes still shining, threatening to spill over. Mr. Holton put an arm around his shoulder, gently steering him towards the door. You should go have fun. Make some nice memories. Cove's gaze flickered over to you, the watery smile on his face solidified. Alright. Good. Now out you go. Mr. Holton nudged the two of you out of the shop. You both walked silently as you made your return to the docks. Cove's face was pensive, clearly still digesting everything his dad said. He finally sighed, catching your attention. He hesitated to reach for the bag he had brought, raising it up. Sophia, I want to call my mom. I'm not going to leave her out of things, and I want to know what she thinks about what happened and all that. He fiddled with the straps of his bag, and it still remained closed shut. It's not like that I don't trust my dad, it's my mom's thoughts are important too. No more feelings, please. Oh no, it's gonna get worse. I get it, Cove. There's two sides of every story after all. Unless you're talking about my actual dad. Then there's one side, and then a lie. He seems to relieved that you understood, and he knew you didn't want to be a bother with another. You knew he didn't want to be a bother with another delay. Thanks. Then I guess there's no time like the present. Time to ask. With a mini prep talk, he finally opened his bag, found his phone. Cove unlocked it quickly, tapped over his favorite contacts, and he called it up his mom and putting the phone on speaker as it dialed. Kyra must have had her phone close by because she answered almost immediately.
Cove.
There you go, Flamingo. Cove, this is a pleasant surprise. I thought you would be getting back to me later. Hey, Mom. He paused for a second and then looked at you. You're on speakerphone. Sophia's here too. Mommy! Hi, Kyra. Hello. Hi, I'm here. You kept quiet. She already knew you were there. Why does Kyra look younger? She's Benjamin Button. She's going backwards. Hello. Oh, hello. I'm popular today. Well, what's going on? Don't keep me in suspense. Are you a pro jet skier already? Cove chuckled and scratched the back of his head. We actually haven't started yet. Actually, there's something I kind of want to ask you about.
Really?
I'm intrigued. Her voice was bright and excited. Cove moved the phone closer to his face so he could speak softly, aware that the tone of the conversation was about to change. I was talking to Dad earlier. It was about your relationship and why you both divorced. Oh God. I felt my voice break. Alright, you guys ready for this? Snuggle down into the blankets. Alright. That one syllable had lost all her earlier energy, and Cove tightened his grip on the phone. It does make sense that the past would come up today. Yeah, but he tried brightening the mood up again. You weren't used to him being the perky one of the two. You only could imagine it felt strange. A strange role reversed for him. Dad said you were really amazing and he admired you a lot. What a flatterer. She sighed wistfully, and you can hear some interference. Maybe she was shaking her head, but you couldn't tell for sure. Oh, Cliff. He bundled himself through regular, everyday adulting and social situations in an astounding, trembling way. Yet, somehow, at the exact same time, he was ambitious, slightly shady, under-the-table type of guy when it came to making his living in the world. So essentially, your father was an absolute heartthrob for someone such as myself. Cove and Kyra laughed delicately. The tension was broken into something lighter, more familiar between the two. It was cool that the both of you had nice things to say about each other. Yeah, at least they don't hate each other. Unlike my parents. I agree, baby. Did I? Okay. Oop. She took a moment before continuing carefully. Do you have questions about what happened? I'm not sure. Cove squinted at his phone in his hand, trying to think. His free hand brushed over his hair. I kind of just want to know how you describe what it was like. Could I tell you what Dad said about it?
All right.
I don't think Cliff would mind. Whatever he told you was probably what he said to me. All right, go for it. After taking a breath, Cove recapped Cliff's experience, doing his best to follow his dad's story, and he went into a surprised amount of detail, and not a single thing was missed. Kyra listened in absolute silence, letting her son speak without interruption. When Cove finished, she took in another deep breath of air. So, what do you think? Kyra sighed softly, and you hear a clacking on the phone as she was drumming her nails on the back of her phone or on the countertop. That definitely sounds like Clifford. It's not exactly wrong, but he doesn't have the total picture. He puts the emphasis on the wrong places, I think.
Huh?
What do you mean? For starters, Cliff unsurprisingly downplayed himself more than he had to. He did? Cove's eyebrows raised, his face continued to inch even closer to the screen. Well, since your dad was so praising of me, it's only fair I return the favor. When Cliff said he was already taking care of himself when he met me, he means he was on his own. Cliff's own parents weren't, and still aren't, friendly people. They always had a competitive relationship. Through him getting into drinking, gambling as a teenager certainly didn't help. He knew that they'd kick him out at 18, so he saved them the trouble and left home at 17. He always found a way to make it work, even without support. I met him a few months after that. We hit it off right away. He was exactly what I wanted back then. We dated, and then about half a year later, bam, you were on the way, Cove. She laughed fondly as Cove clung to every word. I was really optimistic about it, and I couldn't wait to be a mother. I was more than happy that Cliff was the father who would be along for the ride. We got married quickly before you were born. recollection of our wedding dynamic was pretty spot on. He was extremely stubborn, just as well immature, highly, highly immature. Her voice raised slightly as you got the feeling that she was thinking back to her memories of living with him. She left out specifics unspoken. Is she telling the story of getting it on with the dad? Probably. But it's not like I was grown up either. Everyone except maybe Cliff could see our relationship was no good, or at least it was not good enough yet to commit to. I knew, but I still didn't want to give it up. I wanted to keep the family together. I thought that if we divorced or were never together, that we would ruin your life, Cove. Obviously, that wasn't true. I just didn't have enough experience at the time to realize that it wasn't our only option for us. Maybe things would have been easier on you if we split when you were still a baby. But it took me a few years to start figuring it all out. Cove nodded, even if his mom couldn't see it. Thinking hard about something, he was likely remembering his own experience back then. We were married, but never seriously in love with each other. We hardly knew each other. I didn't mind that Cliff never viewed marrying me as some kind of dream come true. I honestly just appreciate that he tried to give me my hasty-made life plan a shot. I was the one who proposed after all, got down on one knee and everything. She huffed slightly and chuckled something between a chuckle and a sigh. It's very funny and a little sad that Cliff still doesn't know why things changed between us. It was obvious to me, and I guess he does know deep down. He just never consciously made the connection.
It's all right.
I'm not even mad that he didn't stay the same towards me. Love makes everything difficult. But you said... I know what I said. She interrupted before Cove can finish his blurred out interjection. I don't mean Cliff and we were just two kids in a relationship that only ever worked when it was at its easiest. And then when you were born, little Cove James Holton, I loved you immediately, and so did your father. Cove was stunned. His eyes started watering as his mouth clamped shut. The inclination we had towards each other paled in the face of that. Our love for you was the real deal. Cliff was the proudest papa. And then, in true Cove fashion, his tears began to fall. He stayed silent, but you were pretty sure that Kyra knew the effect on her words on her son. No matter how much time passed, Cliff never gotten over how amazing it was that such a precious little boy he was his. I should have taken pictures on how puffed up whenever someone referred to you as his son. She sounded much cheerier now. A slight smile creeped on Cove's face despite his tears. Then again, he still does that now. It wasn't hard to imagine Mr. Holton lighting up around baby Cove the same way he did at his 18-year-old Cove. With 18-year-old Cove. I remember when real arguments started brewing, Cliff had a habit of walking off to cool off. He wasn't able to handle it. His son seemed to have taken after him in that way. You hear her chuckle and Cove look down, a blush clear on his cheeks, and you could feel her smirk through her phone. She breezed over the next session airily. For our whole relationship, he always ended fights by skipping out on me for who knew how long. I didn't even think Cliff knew when he came back. That stopped when you were born. Cliff stopped running, and he was still gone a lot for work, and we still had fights, but he wouldn't leave. Instead, he would go to your room, Cove. If you were asleep, he'd just sulk on the ground by your crib until you woke up. Sometimes he paced the room while holding you, sitting on the floor, rocking you. He stayed with you until one of us decided it was ready to talk again. We didn't have a lot of furniture back then, and the part of the reason why Cliff always hung out on the floor was he really came to embrace it. What? Okay. When our relationship got bad enough that we didn't even want to share a bed anymore, he made sure that I got to have the mattress. Instead, he set up a spot in the corner of the nursery just in case you needed anything through the night. He gave you more private space when you gotten bigger, but he still always made sure he could be there for you. There was still no denying whether Cliff understood or not. He made his choice without prioritizing me, but it wasn't that he suddenly hated me. To Cliff, I was only a wife on paper. In his mind, I was a cool girl that he had dated and genuinely liked. Nothing close to being the light of his life. All his blood, sweat, and tears weren't for himself or me, or even for the family unit. They were completely and totally for his baby. Meanwhile, I was doing the same, though in the opposite way. I did take us being married seriously, and I was trying to force us together as a couple, so we could have a complete family for our child. You felt like a fly on a wall of a very personal conversation. Cove didn't seem to notice when you looked over at him. His face had a complicated patchwork of emotions.
I guess.
Eventually, I woke up and saw what I was doing and realized it wasn't going to work. Like that. Not like that. I was ready for it. I talked to Cliff about separating and started up the divorce process. He was shocked by it. Unfortunately, it wasn't too long after that you had your accident, Cove. Sophia, I don't know how much Cove really told you about it, but when he broke his arm, it terrified all of us. Cove could have died, even back then, if... Oh god. Oh god. That hit my scar. No. Oh god. Even back then, we knew he'd likely have a permanent scar he would have to live with forever. Our parenting hurt our child, and he was the one who had carried the repercussions. You were a bit taken back to be referred to directly. You still felt like a little out of place, and she seemed to completely focus on her son. Cove grimaced, the hand holding his phone shook. Mom. Kyra continued as if she never paused. It was heartbreaking, and on top of all of that, on top of it all, we had to put you through your parents breaking up. Taking that back wasn't an option despite the timing. It felt like everything that we had worked so hard for to make you happy was for nothing. I chose to believe that we fixed our lives from there, but to Cliff it seemed hopeless. He had failed his son. It was easier for me in some way. I had my family to lean on that made it feel less daunting and less impossible. Cliff only ever really known being on his own, by the happenstance of his birth and by choice. When we broke up, he knew he was going to have to put back the pieces of what was left alone. I wanted to be there for him even after everything, but I was the one divorcing him, and it was impossible. I never managed to be the person he truly relied on, and I had to remember that wasn't changing. As bleak as it felt at the time, Cliff still tried not to let any of that show to you, Cove. He still did whatever he could to keep your spirits high about the move and your new house and the scar and everything. So that's why. Cove trailed off. He misunderstood the impact his injury had on his parents. You reminded of something that made more sense now. Mr. Holton had always been so helpful with Cove's old Halloween costume because he didn't want Cove to be saddened by the scar. It was clear to Cove was coming to the same realization. Now, with all that said, if Cliff was completely perfect and wonderful guy, I wouldn't have left him. If it was even pretty good, I would have stayed. It was hard not to have custody. Sometimes I felt like I was the fun aunt rather than a mom I always wanted to be. I might have overcompensated a little bit at times because of that. She forced a laugh, but it had an uncomfortable edge to it. You could tell that she was trying to blow off a very real anxiety of hers. Cove looked ready to say something, but his mom kept talking and kept moving forward. Still, it's not Cliff's fault alone that our relationship didn't work. We always better as co-parents than spouses. But I knew when separating that it wasn't going to be even. And Cove, the only reason I could stand not being there for you all the time was because I knew that if the situation was reversed, I could have provided, and I could provide a more stable environment. Cliff would have done the same. Your dad would give up his house, his shop, even his right arm if it would guarantee you being safe and happy. It was so, as painful as it was, I was sure that you would be okay because you were still with someone who loved you more than anything else in the world. Cove lowered his head, tears falling to the ground. As he tried to speak, it took him a few tries. Thank you for telling me. His voice cracked and Kyra made an alarm sound on the other end of the line. I'm sorry, baby. I didn't mean to make you cry.
I get it.
It's okay. He was still crying, but everyone could tell, being physically present or not. I love you, Mom. You always be my mom. Not some aunt, my mom. I love you too. Her tone was thick with emotions, and she was at the edge of a voice break herself. So lucky to be your mom. She started to sniffle openly.
Don't worry about that.
Don't feel bad for me with how it worked out. Thank you. Did you just bust it? Worked out. I promise that none of it was your fault, and it's not as though I was completely miserable over here. Thank you. I had an incredible life with a baby boy of my own who calls me whenever he can. At that, Cove's tears only came down heavier. Thank you. Kyra sighed affectionately. You could hear the warmth in her voice. I think that's good for now. Maybe you should end the call, take a moment? Is that really alright? He tightened his grip on his phone, and you can see how emotional and exhausted he looked.
Of course.
We'll be in touch soon. For now, you You'll only be able to keep thanking me or apologizing.
Hey!
Cove cried out defensively over the accusation, making his mom snicker. Bye, and goodbye to you, Sophia. I'm glad you're there for my baby. Are they still on the phone? Yeah. They're ending it now. See you. Bye, Mom. I love you. Love you too. That means no hanky-panky. Cove hung up. He laid a hand, letting his hand drop to his side. His phone brushed the fabric of his wetsuit. His other hand went up to his face to try to wipe the tears from his eyes. His face was red and he struggled to put his phone in his bag one-handed, and you could tell he was getting worked up. He finally used both of his hands to steal the phone back into the normal place. Cove sniffed and reached out for you, a hand trembling in your grasp, and you squeezed back. I suddenly have the urge to eat honeydew melon. No idea where it came from, but it did. He needed to feel your support. Is one of you in here? No? Thought I smelled the dog fart. I went past it. Oatmeal is outside my door. You want to go see your dad again? He didn't have to tell you what was on his mind. Cove nodded his head weakly. You rushed back the way you came, feet pounding across the floorboards of the docks, returning to the scuba shop for the third time. Jet skis, not yet. You reached his dad's store and Cove still wasn't slowing down. He pushed his way through the door at full speed. Will they jet ski? Yes. Yes, we'll jet ski. His hand released yours as he charged in. Holton had been walking around the middle of the store to check over things. Immediately, he turned to the sound.
What's wrong?
What? Where's the fire? He froze when he got a look at Cove's face. He worriedly opened his mouth, probably to ask what was wrong, and then Cove launched himself at his father. Cove threw his hands around Mr. Holton's neck, burying his face in his dad's shoulder and starting to sob in deep, pitching breaths. Cliff clearly had no idea what was going on, and his hands hovered awkwardly in the air. He looked at you for a brief second, hoping for understanding before turning all his attention on Cove. Look at this, boys. He wrapped both his arms around Cove's back, and Cove looked secure in his father's embrace, protected and safe. It's okay. It'll be okay. Whatever it is, it's going to be okay. Cove kept crying, inhaling deeply. His voice choked up when he tried to speak.
I'm so sorry.
You have always tried to be there for me when I was growing up, and I was mean to you, and I'm sorry.
What?
Mr. Holton was completely taken back. He hadn't expected this to be the issue. Mommy? Who are you calling mommy? There's no mommies here. You don't have to apologize for that, bud. Kids are allowed to be mad at their parents. It's my job to take care of you, and I didn't really do anything special. Cove shook his head empathetically as he could while still tucked in against his dad. I saw green hair. No, that is Cove. Mommy was here earlier. You've always supported me no matter what, and you always loved me, and I wished I realized how you did sooner. Cove squeezed him tighter. Thank you. I love you, Dad. At his son's heart-filled confession, the father became choked up as well. He compressed Cove into a crushing hug. I do love you. I always will, and you can count on that. I want to be there for you. I want to be there for you too. They clung to one another, absorbed in the moment, and then after a little while longer, they began to loosen their hold. Cove sniffled and moved so he could use his palm to wipe his tears. His dad's shirt was busily damp where his face had been. Cliff patted on top of Cove's shoulders, and he looked at his son with pride. You had grown so much. Cove started to laugh through the tears, a quivering smile on his lips. You doubted that Cove would have ever thought that crying on his dad's shoulder was a sign of maturity, but it was true. Cove had changed over the years. You were glad to see Cove grown. You felt a little awkward. You thought you understood Cove's dad a little better, or it made you wonder if there was more to understand about your moms. I don't know. Cove used to cry a lot over his parents, and he still did. Despite the similarity, the defining Cove-ness, there was a big difference between the two occasions. You were proud of him. Cove wiped his eyes again. You're a good dad. You're a good son. Mr. Holton was plainly touched by the words, and he beamed at his beloved child, and Cove looked away, slyly tracing his scar. Cliff chuckled, released Cove to rub the back of his neck. The earlier panic had bleeded off and left the confusion. I'm glad for talking about this, but what made you cry in the first place? You weren't too bad off when I left you before. Oh. Cove ducked his head down further, getting a very good look at the scuff marks on the floor. I called Mom, and I wanted to talk to her about all this. He kicked one of his feet shyly, swinging it back and forth against the ground. Things felt really hard when I was younger, and it wasn't just me going through stuff, Dad. You never gave yourself credit. Cliff smiled gently, gripping Cove's shoulder with reassurance.
Oh.
Kyra is an amazing person to come to my defense. For me, the only hard part was seeing you and her unhappy. Everything else, that was nothing. Ow, I did it again. He wrapped an arm around Cove's neck for another side hug. Cove leaned into the embrace, glancing up at his dad. Your old man is tougher than he looks. Check out how powerful these arms are. And this is 10 years on. I was in my prime in those days. My screen froze. May or may not passed out. Cove laughed. There was a light sound and full of fondness. Okay. He quieted down a little, finding a quick moment of seriousness. Thanks again, Dad. I know you don't want me to feel bad, and I'm happy because of everything you and Mom did. I had a real nice life. Mr. Holton, countenance became much more serious, and he didn't take what was said lightly. Arms. Oh my god. Cove, you're very welcome, and that's good to hear. He let Cove go again, but this time they both took a step back to their normal prom mix. Yep, fuck it. Mr. Holton cleared his throat and looked you right in the eyes.
That's a relief.
I also appreciate that you're here for support, Sophia. What a loyal partner. Cove looked down, embarrassed. Glad to be here. I want to be there for you too, Mr. Holton. Thank you for noticing my presence. Finally, Hello, Zushin. Oh god. You're both so sweet. You couldn't find a way to react. Ski jets? Yeah, I'd have been. Oh, you guys seeing that? Are you seeing that too? You broke it! I did! Oh! Hold on a minute. Oh. Oh. What is happening? It says less fails and more jet skis. I hope it's done. Okay. Well, oh god, please stop. I'm like, I can't even drag OBS up